Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a really fascinating piece of insight for you today. And it focuses on, well, kind of a counterintuitive idea about health improvement. Yeah, it really challenges that whole premise of, rejuvenation or even biohacking. Instead, the core idea seems to be maybe true health improvement isn't really about becoming younger. It's simply about slowing down the rate you are, well, falling apart.
That reframing is incredibly powerful, and it comes straight from Master's Insight #104. This is a strategic piece co-written by Fuqi Wu, the master and strategist DAGE. And they're looking at this concept they call the human paradise, which is essentially a very tightly controlled enclosed air zone designed specifically to, drastically cut down environmental toxin exposure.
Right, and the master asks this really practical question that kind of drives this whole deep dive. If you put someone in this low toxin place for just 3 months,
Mm.
can they actually feel a big difference? Like noticeably, more energy, faster movement, maybe those little annoying aches and pains just sort of
Yes.
disappearing.
And DAG's analysis is a definite yes. It's not just probable, it's biologically predictable. So our mission today is really to pull apart the mechanics behind that confidence. It's all explainable through, well, metabolism, how toxins work in the body, and the body's own self-repair mechanisms,
Hmm.
which often struggle, frankly.
The core thesis here is really compelling, isn't it? That the 3-month mark,
Mm.
it's like the first real biological switching point,
Yeah.
where the body shifts gears. It goes from what they call chronic poisoning mode to natural repair mode.
Mm.
And it's not presented as some miracle cure, but more like for the first time in maybe years, your body just isn't falling apart quite so fast.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how carefully they define what is not happening. When someone goes into this protected zone, it's really crucial to get this. They are not instantly becoming healthier in the way we usually talk about it, like fitness gains or nutrient boosts. And they are definitely not doing some kind of rapid, aggressive detox.
Okay, hold on. If the body's still carrying around all those old accumulated toxins, how can someone feel so much better so quickly? Doesn't that internal toxic load, keep weighing them down until it's actually gone?
That's the key point, the tension we need to resolve. The feeling of improvement doesn't come from cleaning out the old stuff immediately. It comes from stopping the new damage that's happening constantly, every day. The mechanism is like a two-part braking system. First, the rate at which you take in external toxins just plummets, maybe by 80, 90%. And second, because that intake slows down so much, the curve of your internal toxin concentration finally stops rising so steeply it flattens out.
Ah, okay. So the body stops using up most of its energy just trying to keep up, like trying to run up a down escalator that's constantly speeding up.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. The result is the body stops having to throw all its resources at defending against this continuous daily assault. It can finally shift towards a more stable rhythm of self-repair. That constant incoming damage was demanding nonstop, exhausting maintenance work. Now, that demand is lowered enough for the body's own repair crew to actually start catching up on backlog.
This is where the source gives this incredible analogy. It really makes it stick. They ask you to imagine carrying a really heavy, soaking wet sandbag
Mm-hmm.
every single day, all day long. The truth summary puts it bluntly. It's not that your body became stronger, it's that toxins no longer force it to collapse.
And that phrasing, you weren't getting old, you were potentially being chronically poisoned. That's
Well, it's deeply unsettling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you rethink every little ache, every bit of brain fog, every time you felt just off and blamed it on getting older. You just put the sandbag down. And because you're not burdened by that immediate, constant defensive effort,
yeah.
you move faster. You feel lighter. Your energy is suddenly freed up for other things. It's liberation, pure and simple, not some kind of biological upgrade.
But crucially, that liberation takes time. Which brings us back to your earlier question. Okay, I put the sandbag down. Why 3 months? Why not 3 days? Why isn't the benefit instant? We have to connect this idea of reducing the load to the actual biological timelines in the body.
Right. Give us the details. Why is that 90-day window so important?
It lines up almost perfectly with the body's known renewal cycles. The 3-month window isn't arbitrary. It's the time needed for many major systems involved in processing toxins and waste to complete at least one full or nearly full turnover cycle. Think about the key organs here. Your liver cells regenerate roughly every 60 to 90 days. Kidney repair, intestinal lining repair. These are vital for filtering waste and absorbing nutrients. They take about 2 to 3 months. Even things like your blood cells, your skin, they have renewal cycles around that 90-day mark too.
So in a typical high-toxin world, you're constantly interrupting those repair jobs. Like new damage keeps coming in before the cycle can finish cleanly. You build up maintenance debt.
Exactly right. The body's always trying to start a major renovation, say, refreshing the liver, but then a new wave of toxins hits, demands an immediate energy-sapping defense response, and pulls resources away from that renovation project. But once that continuous bombardment from toxic air stops or drastically reduces, the body's natural detox and repair rhythm can finally run its course without constant interruption. That 3-month point is where enough of these major systems have likely completed at least one full, cleaner repair cycle, and that's enough to create a shift you can actually feel.
That provides fantastic context. The systems can finally get maybe not a totally clean slate, but at least a manageable workload. Okay, let's get practical then. The insight points to 5 key areas where you can really observe improvements after this shift. These show you, the listener, how reducing that toxic load translates into real, noticeable physical changes. Let's start with the head, the nervous system.
Right. This governs your mind, your emotions. And the results here can be quite dramatic because the nervous system is just so sensitive to environmental stress. People report things like falling asleep faster, staying mentally clear and stable during the day, and just a general reduction in feeling irritable or on edge.
And what's the mechanism there? What causes that sort of immediate smoothing out of mood?
It seems to be about stabilizing stress hormones. This happens partly because you're breathing fewer volatile organic compounds, VOCs, those gases from paints, new furniture, cleaning products. By cutting down that VOC exposure significantly, you relieve some of that chronic low-level pressure on your nerves, which translates to, well, maybe less snapping at people, less frustration over little things, and maybe that afternoon brain fog that just kills your productivity, maybe that starts to lift.
Okay, moving outwards, the respiratory system, nose, lungs, what changes there? How does breathing literally change?
Often people notice less nasal congestion first, less of that habitual throat clearing or coughing, maybe less phlegm. And importantly, allergic reactions, say, to pollen or strong smells might decrease because the immune system isn't already working overtime fighting off pollution particles. The mechanism is pretty direct. In that enclosed zone, airborne toxins and those really tiny particles, the ones below PM 0.1, they almost vanish.
Can you quickly explain PM 0.1 for listeners who might not know? Why is that size significant?
Sure. PM is particulate matter, and zero point 0.1 microns is incredibly small. Ultrafine particles. These often come from burning things like traffic exhaust or even friction. And because they're so tiny, they don't just get caught in your nose or throat. They can go deep into the lungs, and some can even cross into the bloodstream, potentially even reaching the brain. So when the human paradise filters these out, it's not just removing dust you can see, it's taking out these really invasive pollutants that cause systemic irritation.
That makes the benefit feel much more significant. Okay, let's go deeper inside digestive and excretory system. Gut and bowel. Huge for daily comfort.
Oh, absolutely fundamental. People consistently report less bloating. Digestion feels smoother. Bowel movements become more regular, easier. Often appetite normalizes too. Maybe less stress eating or weird cravings. And again, a likely mechanism is lower circulating stress hormones. Your autonomic nervous system, the body's internal control panel, kind of calms down when the brain isn't getting constant danger signals from the environment. And when that system calms down, your gut literally relaxes.
Okay, now the one everyone connects with feeling old, muscles and joints,
Uh-huh.
the muscular and joint system. Where that feeling of lightness comes from.
Right, that feeling like a weight has been lifted, that seems to be a direct result of chronic inflammation starting to subside. When your body isn't fighting this constant low-grade battle against toxins, that background noise of inflammation reduces, and then the unexplained stiffness, the soreness when you wake up, maybe that nagging joint pain, it can start to fade. Because inflammation is metabolically expensive, it uses a lot of energy. When the toxic input goes way down, that energy gets redirected away from constant defense back towards actual tissue repair and just normal activity. So you don't just feel less pain, you might actually have more endurance for everyday tasks.
And finally, the systemic stuff, those minor symptoms, the things we tend to just ignore or accept. Cold hands, dry eyes, itchy skin, that kind of thing.
Exactly. These often annoying but ignored discomforts tend to improve quite dramatically. And it's likely because they are often surface signs of these low-level systemic microtoxic reactions. People report waking up feeling clear-headed, not groggy. Their energy during the day becomes steadier without that classic 3 p.m. slump. Things like chronic cold hands and feet might improve. Dry eyes, itchy skin might calm down. This points towards the immune system finding a better balance. It's like turning down this constant irritating background static that you didn't even fully realize was there until it stopped.
This whole shift sounds incredibly positive, obviously, but it brings up a really important point for doctrinal consistency, as the source puts it. We need to be really careful with the language. The insight is very clear.
Yeah.
After 3 months, the user is no longer poisoned.
That is absolutely critical for accuracy. Making that claim no longer poisoned would be completely misleading. Remember, those old toxins, the ones accumulated over years, they're still inside. They build up in fat tissue, in organs. But the key difference is that the rate of new accumulation has slowed down so much that the internal concentration curve, instead of climbing steeply upwards, has flattened out.
So the human paradise idea, it was never designed or sold as some kind of rapid detox machine or a rejuvenation chamber that reverses decades of damage in 90 days.
Precisely. Its power isn't in aggressive cleaning. Its power is simply in creating this highly controlled space where the rate of new toxin intake drops dramatically, and that environment just gives the body the chance to shift into a slower aging rhythm, instead of the accelerated breakdown rhythm that the master suggests is common.
Which leads directly to the ongoing implication, right?
Yeah.
The effect is entirely dependent on how much time you actually spend inside that protected environment. It's a continuous relationship, not a one-off fix. The quote is, "The longer you stay, the slower you decay."
Exactly. It shifts the whole conversation around wellness away from these often stressful, aggressive interventions and more towards passive protective maintenance, which really aligns with how the body prefers to work, lots of self-repair. It just needs the environmental stress reduced fundamentally.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you, listening? Well, the insights suggest that seeing major improvements, energy, mobility, fewer annoying symptoms within just 3 months, isn't magic. It's likely a natural result of simply reducing the burden on your body from the environment. And it lines up really well with those known 60 to 90-day renewal cycles in key body systems. You're basically just giving your body the breathing room, the resources, and the time to finally start catching up on its huge maintenance backlog.
Yeah, and let's end with that powerful quote suggested in the source. It really captures the shift in thinking beautifully. I haven't grown younger, but after 3 months without pain or sickness, I walk faster, I sleep better, and I finally understand. I wasn't getting old, I was being poisoned. Now that less poison enters me, my body simply isn't as bad anymore.
That really lands the point. The whole effect is about slowing decay based on the time spent protected. Which leaves us with a final, maybe provocative thought for you to consider. If the key benefit comes from slowing the rate of toxic accumulation, what does that imply about our normal environments? And perhaps more pointedly, how often might you be confusing the symptoms of chronic low-level toxicity with what you've always just assumed is the inevitable process of aging?
空气六无迷宫净化剂，打开寿命枷锁，彻底过滤所有危害生命的悬浮颗粒。空气六无迷宫净化剂是全世界唯一能真正过滤毒性悬浮颗粒与气溶胶的装置。空气六无品质指的是无尘、无菌、无毒、无烟、无气味、无重金属。它的核心设计让人类不再成为人形空气净化机。5大净化步骤。第一步，负离子电离区，双重静电滤网预滤，拦截灰尘花粉塑胶微粒 box 和毒气。第二步，第二次电离区，中和病原体分解化学毒素，让穿透的所有颗粒与气溶胶，带上负电荷进入下一阶段。第三步，静电集尘迷宫核，替死黑核，永久锁住所有超微细污染物，气溶胶水分蒸发，残余毒素如同电镀，牢牢吸附在正电板上。第四步，迷宫效应，迫使气流多次急转弯，奈米毒素撞击壁面，全数被吸附。第五步，极度纯净新风输出，最终排出100%纯净无毒的空气，地球上最纯净的完美空气，无尘、无菌、无毒、无烟、无气味、无重金属。结论，这不只是过滤器，而是打开人类寿命枷锁的唯一钥匙。新鲜空气是自然的礼物，纯净无毒空气是科技的结晶。